4 words. 43 years. Hannibal Smith said them in a burning warehouse, on a crashing plane, in a barn full of scrap metal. America never got tired of hearing them. But the man behind the cigar nearly drank himself to death before he ever lit one on screen. The most famous man in the cast watched his bank account drop below $200. One of them watched his brother shoot and kill their father before he was old enough to drink. One was diagnosed with cancer before the show ever aired, rejected every doctor's treatment plan, and is still alive in 2026. And one was nearly fired after the first episode, saved only because test audiences loved him more than anyone on screen. Let's see what really happened. George Peppard as Colonel John Hannibal Smith. George Peppard Jr. was born on October 1, 1928 in Detroit, Michigan. His mother was an opera singer. His father was a building contractor who lost everything in the Great Depression. After his father died suddenly, young George finished his dad's unfinished construction jobs, then enlisted in the Marine Corps at 17. He earned his degree from Carnegie Mellon on the GI Bill. He was 54 years old when he became Colonel John Hannibal Smith, the cigar-chomping, disguise-wearing, plan-loving leader whose absolute confidence made every impossible mission feel inevitable. But by 1983, George Peppard had already lived 3 careers. He starred opposite Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's in 1961. He played a character based on Howard Hughes in The Carpetbaggers. He was a genuine movie star, and then he drank it all away. Alcoholism consumed most of the 1970s. He sold his car. He took out a second mortgage. He stopped answering his phone. But here is what most people don't know. In 1981, Peppard was cast as Blake Carrington in Dynasty. He clashed so badly with producers during the pilot that they fired him 3 weeks in and reshot every scene with John Forsythe. Forsythe became one of the biggest television stars in the world. Peppard, humiliated and broke, auditioned the following year for an action show. Nobody expected to succeed. James Coburn, who had turned The Magnificent Seven into a career launchpad alongside Robert Vaughn, also turned down the A-Team lead. Peppard took it. He told everyone on set before a single camera rolled that the show would be a massive hit. He was right. The first regular episode aired after Super Bowl 17 and reached 26.4% of the American television audience. But so was his ego. He clashed relentlessly with Mr. T on set. He reportedly used his leverage to have Melinda Kulea removed from the cast. And when the series ended after 5 seasons, Peppard told the media he was thrilled, comparing the mega hit to an out-of-control freight train that would never stop. He married 5 times. He overcame his alcoholism in 1978 and became an advocate for sobriety. In 1992, doctors diagnosed him with lung cancer and removed part of one lung. He quit smoking that day. He kept working. In early 1994, just weeks before his death, he completed a pilot for a Matlock spin-off alongside Tracy Nelson. George Peppard died on May 8, 1994, at 65 years old from pneumonia while still battling lung cancer. He is buried alongside his parents in Dearborn, Michigan. He once said, "Mine isn't a string of victories. It's no golden past. I'm no George Peppard fan." The man who played television's most confident character never once felt that confident about himself. And yet, he called Hannibal probably the best part I've had in my career. He hated admitting it, but the role he almost didn't get was the one that fit him best. Peppard's castmate never had that problem with confidence. He built it from nothing and almost lost it just as fast.
I'm Hannibal Smith. I understand you want to hire the A-Team. We'll take the job. You got the money in the picture?
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Later.
You want to go to Mexico?
You got it.
Mr. T as Sergeant Bosco, B.A. Baracus. Mr. T was born Lawrence Tureau on May 21, 1952 in Chicago, Illinois. The youngest son in a family of 12. 4 sisters, 7 brothers. A 3-room apartment in the Robert Taylor Homes, one of the toughest public housing projects in America. His mother raised all 12 children on $87 a month in welfare. He was 30 years old when he became Sergeant Bosco Albert B.A. Baracus, the gold chain-wearing, van-driving, flight-fearing mechanical genius who became the most recognizable face on American television. He became a 3-time city wrestling champion, earned a football scholarship to Prairie View A&M, was expelled after 1 year, enlisted in the U.S. Army, and was named top trainee of his recruiting class. After the Army, he became a bouncer in Chicago's roughest nightclubs. He adopted the mohawk after seeing a photograph of a Mandinka warrior in National Geographic. He legally changed his name to Mr. T because, as he put it, he watched his father be called boy his entire life and he was done with it. And here is the detail that changes everything you think you know about the man in gold. Sylvester Stallone spotted him on an NBC competition called America's Toughest Bouncer and cast him as Clubber Lang in Rocky III. The line, "I pity the fool," which became his life's trademark, was written by Stallone, inspired by an interview where T told Bryant Gumbel he felt sorry for his opponent. From Stallone's gym to the A-Team set, two of the most iconic television and film franchises of the 1980s, back to back, built on the same man. At the absolute peak of his fame, the action figures, the cereal, the cartoon, the first WrestleMania alongside Hulk Hogan, he was earning an estimated $80,000 per episode of the A-Team. By the late 1990s, after the show ended and the roles dried up, his bank account reportedly held less than $200. In 1995, he was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma. He joked later, "Can you imagine? I personalized cancer." He fought it for 6 years. It went into remission in 2001. Then came Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Mr. T watched the devastation and made a decision. He stopped wearing his signature gold chains. All of them, permanently. He said wearing gold while people had lost everything felt like a sin. The toughest man on television proved his real toughness by choosing compassion over image. Today, in 2026, Mr. T is 73 years old with an estimated net worth of $1.5 million. He is a born-again Christian who spends his time giving motivational speeches and preaching. The man who grew up in a 3-room apartment with 11 siblings, who beat cancer with his own name on it, and who walked away from his most famous symbol because other people were suffering. That is not a character. That is a life. The man who played Face had a different kind of war going on. A quieter one and a far more private one.
BA!
Dirk Benedict as Lieutenant Templeton, Faceman Peck. Dirk Benedict was born Dirk Niewohner on March 1, 1945 in Helena, Montana. He grew up in White Sulphur Springs, a town so small it didn't have a television station. He got into acting on a dare during his freshman year at Whitman College, auditioned for the lead in Showboat, and won the part. He was 37 years old when he became Templeton Faceman Peck, the smooth-talking con artist who could charm his way into anything and out of everything. But here is what most people don't know about Dirk Benedict. When he was 18 years old, his parents divorced. His father was barred by the court from seeing the children. One day, his father returned anyway and began beating his mother. Dirk's older brother shot and killed their father. He nearly shot Dirk too when Dirk followed his father into the room. The court cleared his brother of all charges. Before the A-Team, Benedict was already Lieutenant Starbuck in the original Battlestar Galactica, giving him two of the most iconic television characters of his generation, back to back, built entirely on the same quality, the ability to make recklessness look like genius. Between those two roles, doctors diagnosed him with a prostate tumor. He said no to surgery, adopted a strict macrobiotic diet on the advice of actress Gloria Swanson, and retreated to a cabin in Montana. Doctors called it reckless. By the time he was cast in Battlestar, they confirmed he was in good health. He married actress Toni Hudson in 1986. They had two sons, George and Roland, before divorcing in 1995. Then, in 1998, he discovered he had a third son, John Talbert, born from an earlier relationship and placed for adoption decades earlier. They connected for the first time when John was an adult. Today in 2026, Dirk Benedict is 81 years old with an estimated net worth of $3 million. He lives in Montana. The man who played television's greatest con artist turned out to be the most honest person in the cast. He said what he thought, lived how he wanted, and never once pretended to be anything he wasn't. Faceman was the disguise. Dirk Benedict was the real thing. His co-star, Dwight Schultz, almost didn't make it to the second episode, let alone 98 of them. Dwight Schultz as Captain H.M., Howling Mad Murdoch. Dwight Schultz was born on November 24, 1947 in Baltimore, Maryland. His father was a postal worker. His mother worked for the telephone company. He spent 15 years working on New York stages before Hollywood ever knew his name. He was 35 years old when he became Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdoch, the clinically insane helicopter pilot who lived in a VA mental hospital, talked to invisible dogs, and could fly anything with rotors, while doing impressions of everyone from John Wayne to Woody Woodpecker. And here's where things get fascinating. Midway through shooting the pilot, producers told Schultz his character was being written out. They thought he was too over the top. Test audiences saved him. His scores were the highest of any character on screen. NBC President Brandon Tartikoff personally called Schultz's agent to reinstate him. He designed every single t-shirt Murdoch wore on the show. Once in a cast full of ego, that quiet obsessive attention to detail was his way of saying, "I care about this character more than anyone knows." He later described Peppard as a man who always wanted to be the most noticed person in the room, and was the one cast member who could navigate between Peppard and Mr. T without getting crushed. After the A-Team ended, Schultz asked Whoopi Goldberg, his co-star in The Long Walk Home, to pass along a request to appear on Star Trek: The Next Generation. She did. He was cast as Lieutenant Reginald Barclay, the brilliant but socially anxious engineer, and reprised that role across Next Generation, Voyager, and the film Star Trek: First Contact over an 11-year span. Two iconic franchises, two beloved characters built on the same gift, making vulnerability look like genius. He married actress Wendy Fulton in 1983, the same year the A-Team premiered. They are still married. Their daughter Ava serves in the United States Marines. He became one of the most prolific voice actors in the industry. Dr. Animo in Ben 10, characters in Fallout 4, Skyrim, and Dragon Age 2. Today in 2026, Dwight Schultz is 78 years old and still working. He was the cast member nobody expected to survive the pilot, and he outlasted everything. The man who played insanity with such precision that it became art turned out to be the sanest person on the set. The woman who joined them didn't get the same chance to outlast anything.
Horses on my walls. Horses in my bedspread. Horses in my closets. Horses everywhere.
Melinda Kulea as Amy Amanda Allen. Melinda Kulea was born on May 5, 1955 in Western Springs, Illinois. She had nearly quit acting entirely. 2 failed pilots. Once one broken marriage, before her new manager sent her to audition for a new NBC action series. She was 27 years old when she became Amy Amanda Allen, the investigative journalist who hired the A-Team in the pilot and became their unofficial 5th member. Here is the fact most fans don't know. She asked producers to let Amy participate in fight scenes, not as a warrior, but as someone who tries to help and gets in the way, adding comic relief. They refused. George Peppard reportedly did not want a woman on the show at all. One day, midway through season 2, Kulea received a script. Her character had no lines. That is how she found out she had been fired. No phone call, no meeting. A blank page where her name used to be. She kept working. Knots Landing, The X-Files, Star Trek, The Next Generation, Beverly Hills, 90210. She married director Peter Markle in 1995 and had 2 children. Then she did something unexpected. She stopped acting, started painting, and published a novel called Wandigo in 2016. Today, in 2026, Melinda Kulea is 70 years old. She was hired to bring balance to an all-male show, fought for her character's dignity, and was erased for it. 30 years later, she built a life that had nothing to do with the people who erased her. That is its own kind of victory.
Amy?
It's all in the greens. You do get the green pages. Well, I had you on the distribution list with all the revisions. I'll straighten that out. I'll get you a Xerox of my copy, Mr. Perez.
Robert Vaughn as General Hunt Stockwell. Robert Vaughn was born on November 22, 1932 in New York City. His father was a radio actor. His mother was a stage actress. He earned a Ph.D. in communications from USC. His doctoral thesis on the Hollywood blacklist was published as a book called Only Victims. And he was 53 years old when he joined the A-Team in its 5th and final season as General Hunt Stockwell, the shadowy CIA operative who offered the team pardons in exchange for covert missions. By then, Robert Vaughn was already a legend the show couldn't quite hold. He was Napoleon Solo in The Man from UNCLE. He was Lee in The Magnificent Seven, and it was Vaughn who recommended his college friend James Coburn for that film, a suggestion that launched Coburn's entire career. He was an Oscar nominee for The Young Philadelphians, an Emmy winner for Washington, Behind Closed Doors, and the villain in Superman 3. He was the first prominent Hollywood figure to publicly oppose the Vietnam War. His arrival changed the show's DNA. The A-Team were no longer independent outlaws. They were government assets. Most fans couldn't accept it. Like the series was canceled 12 episodes into its 5th season. Vaughn was called partially responsible for the show's premature end, not because he performed poorly, but because the format he represented was the wrong answer to a question nobody was asking. Robert Vaughn died on November 11, 2016, at 83 years old from acute leukemia. He was the last surviving star of The Magnificent Seven. He had been married to Linda Staub since 1974, over 42 years. Despite being Oscar-nominated, the Academy left him out of their In Memoriam segment, an omission that shocked viewers worldwide. Some actors are too large for the vehicle they're given. Vaughn was several of those actors at once. The fans remember. The fans always remember.
I think the A-Team looks as guilty as hell. However, the guilty must pay for their crimes. They must have known the risks.
The faces that gave the show its world. Tim Dunnigan, original Faceman, pilot only. Tim Dunnigan was born on October 14, 1955. He played Templeton Peck in the pilot, before being replaced by Dirk Benedict. At 6 feet 5 inches, producers felt he looked too young and too tall standing next to the rest of the cast. He went on to appear in dozens of series, from The Fall Guy to Murder, She Wrote. Today, in 2026, Tim Dunnigan is 70 years old. He was the Faceman nobody saw, and he made peace with that decades ago. Marla Heasley, Tanya Baker. Marla Heasley was born on January 25, 1955. She was brought in to replace Melinda Kulea in Season 2, her character lasting only into Season 3. The show never quite knew what to do with women who weren't tied to a helicopter or a hostage situation. Heasley left acting in the early 1990s. Today, in 2026, she is 71 years old, living a private life far from the set that hired her and forgot her. Lance Legault, Colonel Decker. Lance Legault had one of the deepest voices in Hollywood. You felt him before you saw him. With over 200 credits across The Rockford Files, Magnum P.I., and Knight Rider, he was the face of relentless institutional authority across an entire decade of American television. He died on September 1, 2012, at 77 years old. The cause was never publicly disclosed. The man who hunted the A-Team left the world without giving anyone a final statement. That's the A-Team then and now, 43 years later. 2 of the principal cast are gone. George Peppard died in 1994, 7 years after the show ended, before the cult following ever fully formed. Robert Vaughn died in 2016, the last of the Magnificent Seven. Remembered for a career the show could barely contain, the show was built on a beautiful lie. That violence had no consequences, that problems could be solved with a blowtorch and a montage, and that 4 men on the run could fix everything the system couldn't. The people who sold that fantasy week after week lived lives where the consequences were very real. Cancer, financial ruin, ego wars, and erasure. They gave America a cartoon and paid for it with something much heavier. Drop a comment. Which story hit you hardest? And here's the real question. Did you know that Mr. T, the toughest man on 1980s television, the man who wore more gold than a jewelry store, stopped wearing all of it permanently after Hurricane Katrina because he said it felt like a sin while others were suffering? Because once you know that, you never see BA. Baracus, the same way again. If you grew up watching that black van crash through a wall every Tuesday night, hit subscribe. We tell these stories so the heroes Hollywood forgot get remembered.